Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another day here at Reach and Reverie. Today is a big day. I'm excited, a little bit nervous, and really looking forward to it. So today, we are graduating our plant starts out of the greenhouse, and we're planting them into their forever homes in the garden. When I say we, I mean I, with Evie's moral support. Right, Evie? You're gonna help me? I planned on getting an earlier start this morning. I wanted to start before the sun came up, and as you can see behind me, the sun is now coming up. But here we are. I think I overslept through my alarm last night, or this morning, and the sun is actually coming up now. So it is right about 7, and we're getting a little bit of a late start this morning, but the high today is 93. We are expecting some wind this afternoon, so I really want to get these guys in the ground and situated nicely, tucked into their little homes in the morning so that they have the best chance of acclimating before the heat of the day gets here. And as excited as I am, we have done the best we could to prepare these guys for their new homes by hardening them off. I've been bringing them out here and setting them on their stands for 3 to 4 hours a day each morning over the past several days so that they could get their base coat or get their suntan on, darkens their leaves, and it prepares them for the full rays of the sun so that when you plant out things that have been in the greenhouse, they don't die from the shock and sunburn and sun scald of it all. So I'm hoping that we've done enough to prepare them for our harsh Chihuahuan desert sun. We get some intense rays out here, and with our high elevation, I don't know what it is, but I feel like the plants, it's just a little bit harsher on them. And so I feel like I've been nurturing these guys for months in the greenhouse, and I'm just like, here you go. I've done the best I could for you. Good luck. I'm really hoping that we've done enough for them. I do also feel a little bit of apprehension here. I don't know exactly how it's gonna go today. We are really excited and hopeful, but I've done a lot of direct seeding in the garden bed, and the only thing that's come up is the corn. As excited as I am about the beginning of this spring gardening season and finally getting my plants in the ground, I would be lying if I'd say I'm not a little bit nervous and treading with a little bit of apprehension here. Garden soil takes a few years to develop, and this is year 1. So I've been babying and nurturing my seed plants in the greenhouse for this time, and I'm launching them out into their forever homes, into their plant adulthood, so to speak. And I'm doing so in a garden that I'm not sure about as far as the quality of the soil. We're using the native ground 50-50 with the compost, and our soil here, I've got my pH meter, and typically in our region it runs alkaline, but our soil is actually pretty neutral to begin with, neutral on the edge of alkalinity. I've been testing around the property now that my soil meter came in, and we're sitting right at about 7 to 8 pH for native soil, which is 7 is great. 7.5 even is fine. And now that we've added the compost in here and all the amendments, it's brought in the soil acidity pH down to like a 5.5 in some areas, 6 in some areas, which 6 is fine for a lot of plants. So in the areas that are acidic, I do plan on adding some lime around the base of the plants and watering that in to help bring that pH up, to bring it just a little bit closer to the more neutral side of acidity so that it doesn't damage the plants. I am a little bit concerned that there may be something in the soil that's making it not ideal for plant life. It could be the pH that's a little bit off with this new bed. It hasn't had time to fall into balance with itself yet. I know the corn is doing really good. We have a bunch of corn that's coming up. But corn is the only thing that I've direct sown that has sprouted so far. I've done a ton of wildflower seeds some weeks ago. I've planted herb seeds, I've planted bean seeds, and I do take that back. I do see right now, as of this morning, one bean sprout that has come up that I've planted 2 weeks ago. So I mean, I've direct sown lima beans, I've direct sown mung beans, cowpeas, some garbanzo beans, and just plain green beans. And I have one bean that has sprouted in the 2 weeks that I've planted them, and I even soaked them overnight beforehand. And this has never happened to me before. I mean, I've been gardening for many years now. I consider myself a pretty good gardener. Of course, we're always growing and learning. Nobody has ever arrived. But it's kind of interesting that like nothing is sprouting. And out of the plants that we have bought from our local garden center, all of the zinnias have died. My little tomato has died. My peppers are on their way out the door. And I blamed them not being hardened off to their demise. But I'm kind of wondering, is there something off balance in the soil? We're doing great with our potatoes and our onions that are in the same soil. So it could be a simple fact of maybe the garden center plants weren't hardened off. Maybe the new seedlings just haven't come up yet, and they will, because we did have a bean come up. It could be that I've been watering this in the evenings, and in the day there gets a crust on the soil, and maybe the crust is too hard for the seeds to pop up out of. So there's a lot of factors at play. My plan today is to plant my plants, my little seedling greenhouse starts, into the ground and then mulch around them, which will keep the soil moist for longer. And then I do plan on opening up little pockets or holes in the mulch bed, and then maybe direct sowing in those holes as well. And maybe that would be more favorable for the seeds that I plant to come up. And maybe I just won't be direct sowing very much this year, and maybe the started plants in the greenhouse will do great because they've had time to harden off. And maybe this is all in my head and I'm just feeling a little bit like it's kind of hard going into a new garden space that you've been anticipating for years, and here the time is here, and it's like the point, you're on the precipice of, are we going to succeed or is this going to fail flat on its face? So with that, all we can do is try, let go of any worry and apprehension we have and move on and hope for the best. But yeah, going into this, the garden is not as green as I thought it would be this time of year. There are slivers of hope with my potatoes and onions, with the corn that's doing really well, and then also with my little sweet peas that I planted out. These were greenhouse starts, which I do have protected with shade cloth, but they're doing fantastic. So maybe it's all in my head. Maybe I got a little cocky this beginning of the season and planted out some peppers and the zinnias and a little tomato right away, and they should have been added to plant boot camp. And because of their failure and the seeds I put in the ground that haven't come up, it kind of shook my confidence a little bit. But with that, we're gonna get into this amazing day, and I'm going to throw away all of that worry and apprehension and just all steam ahead. Only think positive thoughts from here on out, because I, myself, and Evie and Josh, we have worked really hard on this garden this spring and put a lot of tender love and care into our little guys here in the greenhouse that I'm gonna bring out into the real world for them today. And I feel like we've done a lot of preparing. They went through the boot camp program, so that's all we can do. And there's no point in worrying about it because they have to come out of the greenhouse. They can't live in there forever. They can't stay in their little pots forever. And maybe that's a bigger life lesson too in life, is we can't shelter everything forever. We gotta let them launch. Our little plants are gonna have to find their place in this world. And I think that we've done a really good job at making a good life for them so they can live a long and happy, healthy life. And now that we have the knowledge of the acidity level in the soil, and we have the tool through the dolomitic lime that we can use to amend that soil, I really don't see why this garden can't be successful. And with that, let's wake these little plants up and get their moving day started. You know, there is a saying that has been playing in my head on repeat lately as we prepare for this day, which is truly really exciting. I'm actually really excited about it. I feel like I'm overplaying because it's the heat of the moment and it's now or never. But I'm really looking forward to this day today. And I do have good hope and a good outlook for these guys that we've been preparing for this moment. But this saying has been replaying in my head, and I keep thinking about it over and over again, that there's so many people out there that feel like they're a failure because they've bought in plants and they've died. Time and time again, they try to grow a garden and it dies. And they think that they have a black thumb. They think anything they touches dies as far as plant life goes. And that's simply just not true. There are things that you can do to set your plants up for success. And there are things that you can learn about your plants. Some things like more sunlight, some things like more shade, more moisture in the soil, or more dryness. Some things like a higher pH or a lower pH. But at the end of the day, sometimes no matter what you do, plants still die. And that doesn't mean that you're not a good gardener and that you have a black thumb. My saying that, I don't know who came up with this, but it is just lovely, is everybody has a green thumb if you plant enough plants, because things will die. And as long as you just have enough plants that live, nobody will notice all the plants that die, because no matter how good of a gardener you are, plants still die. And that's just the way it goes. So let's get started here. Hey guys, good morning. Y'all ready to get put into the ground? Be able to stretch your roots out of these little tiny cups of confinement, grow big and strong. All right, let's do this. Who wants to go first? All right, we have our ground cherries planted. There were 3 of them. And then we have our eggplants planted, which we had 7 of them. So in this little section, we have ground cherries and eggplants. I do have my cup set up. Next, I'm going to plant my tomatillos, and we are going to get some winds later today, and the tomatillos are a little bit taller, so I am going to put stakes next to those as well. And then the rest of the tomatillos are going to be down here. I'm going to come back and plant my summer squash in between the tomatillos. And then I did direct sow okra, which hasn't come up. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mulch this entire bed when I'm done planting it out. And then I think I'm going to put little like pockets where I spread the mulch apart and try to plant the okra again. And we'll see if we can't get some okra to grow. What do you think, Evie? That's right. On our tomatillos, we do get a lot of wind, and they tend to be more tall, top-heavy plants that don't really blow well in the wind out here. So what I did is I put stakes next to our taller ones, and I put some support around them, but I'm not tying them to the stake, if that makes sense. You still want them to be able to move around and grow strong, but if they do get blown incredibly hard by the wind, they'll have the support that they won't break and completely fall over. So I did that to the taller ones. You still want to just leave it nice and loose around the plant so that they do have that wiggle room to blow and strengthen their stems in the wind without it being catastrophic, because I think we're under a red flag warning this afternoon. We may get gusts in 25-30 miles an hour. And so being set lower, I'm hoping that they'll be in a better spot than if they were like up in a raised bed. But still, I thought that those stakes would give them a little bit of extra support since they are moving in today. In the spirit of being resourceful, the stakes that I actually used for the tomatillos is recycled framing from the greenhouse that was destroyed by wind earlier in the season. And so we took off all of the little plastic fittings and kept these metal framing for the greenhouse, and that's what we're using as the stakes for our little tomatillos. A little bit of greenhouse getting its recycled parts. It was a donor for the garden. It's definitely starting to get a little bit hotter, and I do kind of move a little bit slower. I'm really thorough. And so instead of going ahead and doing all of this at once and then mulching it, I'm going to go ahead and pause now that I have my ground cherry eggplant tomatillos in. I'm going to add some lime around the base of these plants to help them in the soil as far as the pH level of the soil. And then we'll water this in, mulch over these pockets, and then we'll come back and I'll continue planting. And I think I'm just going to do sections at a time because I don't want to stress these plants out too much. I can already see some of my little tomatillos flopping over. They're like, stressed out. It's kind of hot out here. It's really not that hot yet. It's probably the upper 70s, but there is a nice breeze, which I'm sure is dehydrating them a little bit faster. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to just sprinkle some lime around the base of their plants, mulch over them, water them. We're going to move on, and I will keep on planting, and we'll see how far we can get. This is where I got to before it got a little bit too hot today. It's up into the 90s, and I don't want to keep planting out plants now because I feel like it'll stress them out too much during the heat of the day. So I'm going to pick it up tonight, and then we'll see how far I can get. And then I'm also off tomorrow as well. So if I don't get it done tonight, planting out our plants, I can also have tomorrow. So where we got today, we got the ground cherries, eggplants, tomatillos. I got summer squash. I also went ahead and planted my hollyhocks out into the bed with the summer squash, and then more tomatillos on the end. When I come back tonight, I'm going to start with things that grow up on the trellises in this bed so that I can go ahead and finish this bed, except for the square right here, which I'll come back and do another day. And this will be things like cucumbers, melons, gourds, cantaloupes. That type of thing is going to go up over the arched cattle panel trellis. So we'll see. I haven't decided what varieties yet I'm going to grow on which sides of the trellises. So we'll come out and get that organized, and from there we also still have peppers and tomatoes to get planted, and our pumpkins as well. So there's a lot to do. I think I was going a little bit slower than I expected this morning. Just trying to be really meticulous and plan it out really well. Kind of already had an idea of what I wanted to plant where. But in a lot of the pots with the tomatillos, they had like 3 tomatillos in each cup. So I was separating those out and spacing them. And I'm really happy with the way it's looking so far. I do wish these guys luck. I really hope that the mulch that's going to help retain the moisture and the lime that's going to help adjust the pH are hopefully going to be the last finishing touches to really make this the perfect home here in our climate for our garden veggies. I'm crossing my fingers that they're going to do really well, and I'm going to go take a break. You guys will see me in just a second this evening to pick up where we left off. It's now the following day, and I'm going a little bit slower than I had wanted to, filling up this large space, but I've never also had a garden this big before. Usually I plant out all of my starts in a single morning, but we've grown exponentially moving onto this property. So I've got to have a little bit of grace with myself. This morning I'm planting out cucumbers and melons and gourds underneath the cattle panel trellises, and I haven't started yet. It's a little bit windy still from last night, and I had planned on last night finishing this bed and doing all of the trellises. But we did get hit with a literal haboob. And if you've never heard of a haboob, don't know what a haboob is, search it on the internet and you will see pictures of what smacked me in the face while I was gardening yesterday evening. The wind was incredible. It pulled out the hog rings on this arched cattle panel that's holding the greenhouse to the ground, and this came loose. We actually have, it was coming out like this far. We actually had pushed it back in and stepped on it. And we do still have the greenhouse this morning. I had to close all the windows and really seal it down last night. And we had to, of course, stop planting because we were eating dirt in our teeth and getting sand in our eyeballs. But where I ended up stopping last night is we had the, of course, ground cherries and eggplants, which they are looking really good this morning. They survived the haboob, and I had watered them in last night really good, which was also watering me really good with how windy it was. The wind was just swirling around, but I got everybody watered in, and the mulch is, I think, a huge factor in keeping everybody looking so happy and healthy. These are the tomatillos, and you can see I already have some cucumbers planted on one side. I estimated about 4 plants per side of the trellis, and this one ended up getting 6 because we had a little bit better germination than expected, and I didn't want to throw anybody away, so I just kind of smushed them a little bit closer. We have summer squash in here, as well as a couple of hollyhocks, more tomatillos, which are just looking really good. On this side is where I have my gourds. We have the sugar bowl and the loofah. And this one, I'm not too sure about. He looked like his roots were a little sad looking when I planted him yesterday, and I could see he's already curling a little bit. So we'll see how he adapts to his new home. On this side we have, I want to say, I'm trying to think of what kind of cucumber that is. I know we have cucamelons on this side. I had taken pictures yesterday, and I'll end up putting plant labels next to these melons and cucumbers. I think that's dragon's egg, if I'm not mistaken. On this side we have Boston pickle, Sakim, and I don't know what that one is. Anyway, I'll have to go back and look at my pictures to see what we have planted in that space. Anyway, we also are going to be planting out, we have our cantaloupes that are these 4 are going to go right here. We're going to put watermelons on this side with our Katrina hybrid cucumbers, and then over here in the middle we're going to put our Armenian yard-long cucumbers and our snake melons. So those will be our really, really long, heat-happy melons that we'll put on that side. I'm hoping, we'll see how far we can get to plant out our tomatoes and our pumpkins and our bell peppers today, or our peppers, they're not all bells, our pepper plants today. We'll see how far we can get. I tried to get started a little bit earlier this morning before the sun comes up. It's still a little bit windy. We had a huge windstorm come through, and that should blow off as the sun rises, and then we'll get to really planting today and see how far we can get. My throat's a little bit scratchy this morning and congested from all of the, oh wow, there's a bunch of hogs running through. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up. Anyway, I'm all congested from that haboob last night. I was out here planting and watering the plants in, and it was actually like 0 visibility dust storm, which was just wild. What we do for the love of our garden, am I right? So let me get just started planting and we'll see how far we can get. Right, Miss Evie? We lost a pinwheel. At least he didn't blow that far away. It is now the evening that I showed you the previous clip. And we have all of our pumpkins planted. Right now I'm watering for the night. I'm waiting for the pump to make its way over here and then we'll get full pressure. But we have our pumpkins planted. We have all of our arched trellises planted with cucumbers, gourds, melons. And then I did get all of the tomatoes planted. And then we also have our summer squash planted. So right now I'm just gonna water everything in. Of course, we do hope to get irrigation here pretty soon. But for now, we have an irrigation pump that Josh will put a hose down into one of our 3,000 gallon water tanks. And we turn it on, and he'll turn it on, I'll water, and then we'll turn it off and have to pull the hose out so it doesn't create a siphon on the pump. So a little bit of manual labor right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and get this watered. And then I still need to come back and finish planting out the rest of the things in the greenhouse, like the peppers and the herbs. But that's gonna have to wait for another day because we did lose the daylight today. I've been just doing planting in the early morning, and then I stop at about 10, 11, and then I've also been doing in the evening starting around 6 to 8, just because I don't want to be planting in the heat of the day, stress the plants out more, stress me out more. So that's what we're doing. Make sure everybody's nice and watered, and then we're gonna call it a night. Get ready to go to work tomorrow. It's been really nice. I've had the last 4 days off where I've been able to focus on the orchard and the garden and house chores and getting things all ready. We've been working on a couple other projects, like Josh had a good friend come over and we worked on getting some deeper anchors to hold down our RV port with all the winds we've been having. So we've been doing a lot of projects here this weekend. Our weekend's coming to an end, and then I'll be finishing up planting this probably in the afternoons throughout the rest of the week. So I'm gonna end this clip here, and you guys will see me in a second finishing up this video. It's been a beautiful day. It's about a week after the last clip. I've been working out here all day in this beautiful, beautiful weather. The high of 73 today. And I finished planting out the garden 5 minutes ago. I could see a storm in the distance. Wrapped it up, and it feels like we're getting like tornado wind gusts right now. I really hope the greenhouse stands this one. Man, it was a gorgeous day today. I did gardening all day. Josh put new boards on his trailer. That does not look good. Wow, that is a scary cloud. I better go inside. I was going to show you all the garden before it started raining. I don't know about this. I'm going to stay close to the house, but I wanted to show you all guys. That was his old trailer bed. And Josh worked really hard on this today while I was out in the garden planting out the last of my plant starts. I finally got all of our started plants in the ground. It took a lot of effort, Apparently I'm a lot slower of a planter than I thought I would be. I underestimated how long it would take to plant out the garden. And yeah, it took me probably a total of like 3 or 4 full days to plant everything out, trying to plan where we'd put everything and getting it planted, limed to adjust the pH, and then mulched and watered in. It was a full effort, but I love gardening, so I don't mind playing in the dirt a little bit. Wow, the temperature just dropped. It was about 75 degrees 20 minutes ago, and it feels like it's in the 50s right now. Not good. I don't know if y'all could see in the distance. I'll try to zoom in. All the dust. I'll take a little bit of moisture, but we do not want hail and we do not want tornadoes. And look at that, blue skies. Wow. I can feel it starting to rain now, so I'm gonna go ahead and pause this video for now. You guys can catch up here in a second after the storm has passed. It's now the next day and that big thunderstorm has passed and everything is safe and secure. Unfortunately, it picked up with wind again today. We've had very unseasonably high wind this year. Typically we have wind in March and in November of each year, and this year we've had wind non-stop all winter long, through February, through March, through April, and now into May. So we're not really sure what's going on with the weather, but maybe this is going to be the new normal and we're going to have to adapt. Josh and I are already looking into some structures that we can add to the garden as a windbreak to help our little plants out. But that being said, I want to show you the in-ground sunken bed garden that I have all planted out now. It has been a lot more work than I thought it would be, but so rewarding. I wish I could just do this every day because it's so fun to plant new things. So I'm gonna kind of walk through here quickly and wrap up this video, and then we'll go back with a more in-depth garden tour soon. So looking into what we have planted, we do have, of course, our potatoes and onions. We have in these 3 beds. And our potatoes are all coming up. And we have onions that are all coming up. These are the first things that I planted. I've planted these a few weeks ago, so they're doing all right. I just need to come back and mulch these beds. In this first full-sized bed that we have, and if you've been here before, you already have heard this several times, but if you're new here, these are 4 foot wide by 32 foot long, and I have 4 of these beds here on this half of the garden space. We will be, in time for fall, duplicating this and mirroring another 4 beds and probably some beds along the fence as well that we'll add, so we can do a fall garden and then next spring have a full garden. But we have our tomatoes planted. I do have some herbs here up front, like some broadleaf sage and calamintha, and also some bee balm. Lots of tomatoes. I want to say I have over 60 tomatoes in this space. I spaced them just a little bit closer together than recommended, but they will be hopefully growing up this trellis. That will help them be spaced a little bit closer together. We also do prune pretty heavily, so we can afford to space them a little closer together. I planted tomatoes hoping for 40, and we have about 60, but that's not too much of a problem, I don't think. I have my ground cherries and eggplant, cucumbers. Here we do have okra direct sown. I only had 1 come up out of the ones I've already direct sown, and so I did have to get a little bit crafty, and I mulched this to keep it a little bit more moist, and then put little pockets that you can kind of see here, and added some garden potting soil and then added the seeds in again. So we're trying again with the okra. I do think that, and I'm gonna try to keep moving here as I'm fertilizing as well. I'm fertilizing with stinky fish emulsion that the plants love today. Coming through, I also have peanut pockets right here where I made pockets in the soil, or the mulch. I mulched this bed today. I made pockets in the mulch, put the peanut seeds on the ground, and then lightly covered them with potting soil so that they can break up through the surface a little bit easier. So running through this bed here, of course, I already showed y'all up to the okra. We also have some more herbs like catnip, salvia, thyme. We have our tomatillos and more cucumbers, summer squash, some things like hollyhocks and marigolds also spaced through here, and more tomatillos. And then on this side we have our loofah and birdhouse gourds. We've got cucamelons and dragon egg cucumber. And as you can see, I was saying my germination on the direct sowing was pretty poor. I did lima beans all through here, and I have one that has germinated. So today I came through and I sprinkled mulch, and the mulch is very, very light over these areas in hopes that we could still have some beans come through here. If with the mulching it will keep the surface a little bit softer and moister, my goal is that the beans will start coming up. I do plan on sowing new beans with the pocket method in about a week if I don't see improvement with beans starting to come up where I've already planted them. Through here, and that light just looks beautiful shining on them, I have peppers from the end of this trellis to the start of this one. We'll go through in a garden tour showing you what all we have planted, but we do have about 60 peppers planted in that space, I would guess. We have Armenian yardlong and snake cucumbers, or melons, however you'd like to call them. And then I have a whole section here of basil. I had planned on companion planting the basil underneath the tomatoes, but I had an extra space. I thought that the peppers were going to take both of these sections, and I was able to fit them all over here. So I decided, since I had extra space, to go ahead and make like a basil section where we have cinnamon, purple, and lettuce leaf basils. They do want water, so I'm going to keep on moving along. We showed you our pockets peanuts right there where I'm trying to sprout some peanuts. And then I have watermelons and Katrina cukes right here. This is another section where I have cowpeas, and I very, very, very lightly added mulch, hoping that that would help with the moisture so those beans could start coming up. Hey. Over here I've got an evening primrose native to Texas. We've got sweet peas that are shaded with shade cloth. And I have some also protected by the shade cloth, chamomile and cilantro, which look really good. And then the corn is also doing really good. And you can see also we have pumpkins. I do plan on coming back tonight if I have time and mulching around the corn just to help keep the surface a little bit moister so I'm not having to water as much. And that's it. We planted out the garden. We'll come back with a garden tour here very soon when it's not so windy, showing you what all variety-wise is growing in this space. I did also plant out in the front. I have chocolate vine and clematis that I've sown as seeds, hoping that those will sprout as well. And then today, woo, it's windy. We also planted out the start of our cottage garden. And this is the start to our cottage garden. We just planted in a few plants that I picked up at a native plant sale and also our local garden center. I bermed with Josh's help around this area, and then we mulched with mesquite mulch where we chipped down mesquite trees from our property, and we were able to use that in this section because the theory is, since it's not like a garden plant section, I shouldn't be sticking my hands or stepping on it like I may in the garden. So we used our mesquite mulch that's very thorny in this section. And I do plan on having little pathways spidering through this section. We're gonna have the cottage garden extending out here, and then it'll also go this way about to that tree and over to the edge of the garden and back. So this is just the very first stint in our cottage garden. I have a very sad on this windy day canna lily. I'm hoping that he'll hang in there as we do get some strong winds, but he was really beautiful this morning. He's looking a little wind blown today. I also have an African bulbine, which is really pretty. It has these really nice orange and yellow flowers and like a succulent aloe type leaf to it. In South Africa, there are communities that actually use that as like a dermatologist, skin healing and wound care type thing. We've got Artemisia, a red autumn sage. We have a native Chihuahuan sage that has white flowers. We've got a Coreopsis yellow daisy and a silver ponyfoot and a couple of very small foxgloves that I started from seed, hoping they'll do well in here as well. All right, with that being said, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We're gonna go ahead and finish watering in this garden with some fertilizer that is much needed for our little guys and get you guys out of the wind, and we'll catch you guys hopefully on a calmer day on the next one. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. That way you can stay up to date with everything going on here at Reach and Reverie.